everybody. I think we are officially live on Facebook. There's always that weird, awkward delay from Zoom to Facebook. But happy Tuesday morning. I happen to be here with the fabulous Talia Koren. You might recognize Talia from a previous Millennial Talk we just did together, which was awesome and amazing. And that was on entrepreneur hacks for the mind, body, and soul. And today on Facebook Live, Talia and I are really getting into more about all things Instagram. Talia is a meal prep expert. She has so many incredible inspirational recipes and how to meal prep on her Instagram handle at Work Week Lunch. She lives in Colorado right now. I'm super jealous. And she's all about intuitive eating and, of course, making it easier for the everyday person to really prep in advance, eat healthy, and also eat on the go healthy, which I love, Talia. So happy to have you here on Facebook Live. How are you, girlfriend?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here too. I cannot wait to get into some Instagram stuff because I love talking about that, like probably more than meal prep stuff.
Well, it's great because honestly, your platform has really allowed you to be able to speak on both topics. I mean, you have 102,000 followers on Instagram right now, and you're generating for your handle at Work Week Lunch, and you're generating between 50 and 100 comments on some of your posts, which is great engagement, quality engagement, and engagement that many brands and personal brands and businesses dream of generating. So before we get into it, give us a little backstory on the making of Work Week Lunch. Where did it come from, the concept?
Absolutely. I will be totally transparent. I took an online business course, about how to create an online business because I wanted to start some side income, which you talk about a lot. And so that's how the idea happened. And I decided to choose Instagram as my main platform because that's where my audience is. That's where millennial women are. And that's where food, porn is. So I just started and, I started to treat my Instagram like most marketers treat an email marketing channel, like email, by adding value, tracking all these analytics and actually getting really nerdy about it instead of just uploading, which is what a lot of people do. So from there it just snowballed and I figured out I hacked, and we could talk about what I did exactly to grow, but I kind of hacked into these things that people don't really pay attention to, and it just soared from there. So
amazing. And how long ago did you actually start at Work Week Lunch?
I started it in June or July of 2016, but I didn't get serious about it until last January.
So since 2016, we're newly into 2018, and so you said last January, so it's about a year where you would say you put primary, I'm doing this, and you're over 100,000 followers on Instagram. Mm-hmm. I would imagine those are all real followers. You never purchased any followers.
Never. So against that, yeah.
Me too. I think, look, it obviously is very sexy to have a larger following number, but at the end of the day, if you purchase followers, those followers are just dead weight. They're just going to sit there. They're not going to engage. They're not going to like. They're not going to advocate on your behalf. So it's really just dead weight, and also the ratio from following to engagement will look that much more off. And
brands are very savvy. Brands are so savvy, they know that that's a thing. They know what to look for to check if your followers are real or fake. So there's really no point if you're trying to get noticed to buy them.
Exactly. So let's get into the conversation and the topics that everybody's dying to always crack the code on, right? How do we grow a following on Instagram? And today we're talking about Instagram in particular. So how do we go about growing a follower base on Instagram? Do you chalk it up to the concept behind the Instagram page? Do you chalk it up to the tools that you use on Instagram? Or do you chalk it up to how known of a presence you are before really greenlighting a page? So what elements do you really think ultimately create the biggest impact?
Sure. That's a great question. I started from scratch. So that third thing about presence before you start, I think we can cross off the list because you can be a total nobody and grow rapidly. If, and this is what I do chalk it up to, if you have that niche and that specific concept, I think that's so important because even my clients, you know, and I'm a consultant, I work with businesses to help them grow. Some of them, they still look like they're running a personal page. And it's like, I can't tell that your business because you're posting pictures of you at like dinner with someone that you're not even telling who it is. I don't even know if it's relevant to your business. So like, I think, yes, it's like what you're serving is really the biggest thing. Tools are great, you know, obviously like the hashtags, your schedule, like all that stuff is important. But at the end of the day, it's the value you're offering, like any other channel, like what you offer on Twitter and like through email and all the other, you know, platforms. It's that value that makes you noticeable.
Absolutely. So when you were thinking about putting together the concept of At Work Week Lunch, you know, we can have great concepts, we can have great brands, we can have great products, we can have great services. That doesn't mean that that content, service, product is always showcased best through what we share on our channels. And you do such a beautiful job of showing your meal prep and showing your ingredients and even taking you through the recipes for some of your meals on Instagram. So visually, and of course, Instagram, it's a visual platform, right? So how important do you think quality for imagery and video now on Instagram is? And ultimately, do we have to think like a professional when it comes to photography versus those candid, you know, shots that we just upload to Instagram today?
Great question. So this is where the previous presence you have matters. If you're someone who's already a noticeable figure on other platforms, you don't need beautiful content. People just love you. But if you're starting out, yes, there is an Instagram beauty standard and your stuff has to meet it. You know, I always tell my clients that your images can't be blurry or dark. They have to be well lit. Like everything changed when I started using a real camera, which by the way, isn't that fancy. It's like a Canon PowerShot, but it's better than this. So like that changed a lot. Also taking photos during the day helped me. I don't have any lights yet. Like I would love to invest in lights, but even just natural daylight made a huge difference.
But that's so awesome for people to know. So you're not taking any of your imagery from a studio. Nope. It's in your kitchen and not even necessary have a traditional lighting kit.
I use a white poster board that I bought at the drugstore for $3.
Amazing. Amazing. So that's a hack right there for people who want to showcase a product or even a food recipe or maybe even fashion for clothes and you want to outline an outfit, a white poster board just to make it pop behind it.
Make it look cleaner at the very least. I mean, you can go to Home Depot or other stores to buy those surfaces that, you know, the marble. There are so many different hacks like on Pinterest I've seen about like making your backgrounds look clean. So, and they're not expensive. So yeah.
Love that. That's such an awesome hack. And I want to definitely get into some more hacks that maybe you heard of or you haven't heard of. Ultimately, we're trying to help everybody scale their Instagram following and their Instagram presence. And I have a question from one of our awesome members in our Verified Hustlers Facebook group. And if you're listening and not a member of Verified Hustlers, it's our private group here on Facebook, and feel free to look it up and send a request. Happy to accept those who are hardworking, entrepreneurial, minded business owners, and of course looking to network and engage with a like-minded community. So check it out, Verified Hustlers. But Doug Campbell from Verified Hustlers said, Instagram seems fake to me for business. A lot of people just trying to accumulate followers and not really engaging. What's the best way to reach real people? And I thought this was such a great question.
That is an awesome question. Also, I love being in Verified Hustlers. It's great. Yeah. So I think that the trick to this is listening. You have to actually ask questions to your audience repeatedly, because at first they're not going to answer. They're going to be like, what's going on? But if they see it over and over, they'll start answering your questions. And then actually like listening to them and taking what they say to you and putting it into practice. Because without that, then yeah, it is fake. You are just guessing and you're just putting stuff out there that you don't know if it's really helping them or if they like it.
I always say that, Talia. It's so funny because a lot of us are always like racking our brains with what to do and how to do it and what do you think people want. And I always pose the question to my clients of, well, have you asked? Have you asked your ideal consumer group? Have you crowdsourced on behalf of your concept? Have you conducted a mini focus group? And we can do that in so many different ways, in person and on social media today, even through just polls alone.
Yes. Polls. Oh my God, the poll feature is so good for that.
Right? And it's like, instead of thinking, you know, what your audience wants, why don't you actually engage in them to crowdsource what it is they want and then give them more of that?
Exactly.
And it sounds like too easy of a concept, but I think it's something that we tend to forget, that we can pose a question on social media as well.
Totally.
Now, how do you, okay, so you said something right before we went live that I have to circle back on really quick. And I said to Talia, oh, I'm so jealous that you live in Colorado, one of my favorite states in the country. Also happen to be obsessed with skiing. And being a Floridian, I was weirdly good at skiing. It was like my sport. And I was like, okay, I would live in Florida. That's, you know, that was my one and only sport that I thrived in.
Oh my God.
And living in Florida wasn't really, you know, that's easy to do all the time, of course. But you said something of, I turned to Instagram in order to allow me to live here in Colorado and have a job. Tell us a little bit more about that and how you really turned to Instagram to ultimately create your ideal situation in Colorado.
Yeah, I'm like you. Snowboarding is the only thing I'm good at sports-wise, and I love it. I grew up in New Jersey and New York, so even though it's easier than Florida, it's still not that easy to get good snow. I wanted to be right at the base of the mountain and be able to just go for 2 hours and come home and work. So Instagram and building my business through Instagram helps me do that because, you know, Work Week Lunch does provide me with a passive income. It's not full-time yet. I still have my Instagram consulting, but
okay.
You know, both of them work together to help me accomplish this dream of being able to live at the base of a mountain and go snowboarding. So that's like, you know, I live 5 minutes away from Keystone Resort, which is one of the best ones out here with free parking. So like, you know, it helped me so much. And like, I was determined to make it work. There were times when I wasn't growing or things weren't happening or people weren't buying. And I'm like, you know, I need to make this work. I don't have a choice. I have to move here. So I really put all my guns behind it and like made it work.
I love this story for so many reasons because you're showing people how you can really create your ideal work-life balance by utilizing social media within your business. And you're kind of using it as a two-pronged approach. You have your own personal brand identity and concept through Work Week Lunch, but also helping clients consult on their business, their branding, their following. Mm-hmm. So which one came first, the consulting or Work Week Lunch?
Well, I guess I started making money through consulting first.
Okay.
And then Work Week Lunch. Yeah. Because Work Week Lunch is still like my night job. I always say I'm an Instagram consultant by day and food blogger by night. Like it's still, that balance isn't like exactly where I want it to be yet.
Now I would imagine.
But basically I used to work with clients for copywriting, but they kept asking me about Instagram. So that's when I knew I had to pivot. Because Instagram just kept coming up, and I'm like, okay, if this is what you want, like,
I'm gonna give it to you. So, are you also helping source clients through Instagram? Or are you using Instagram as a lead generator as well?
Yeah, sometimes organically. Only if I'm seeing, especially women. I really love supporting other women entrepreneurs. If I see someone selling their product on Instagram, and I can tell that they need help or they're not doing it right, I'll message them, be like, hey, like by the way, you should only have one call to action in your post, not 4. Like, mm-hmm. And then we start talking, and then if they want to work with me, you know, that has happened a couple of times.
Wow. Okay. So using it, so it's kind of like your Work Week Lunch is ultimately helping you validate your area of expertise in Instagram. Because look, if you could build a following, create a brand, and build engagement on Work Week Lunch, why can't you help somebody else do it for theirs?
Of course. I can't guarantee it. There are so many other factors, you know, things that we haven't even talked about yet, like with Instagram growth that I can't control, but I can give them what they need to know and what they should ignore. Because
yes.
Oh, you want to know about the things to ignore? Or things?
I was going to say, so what are some of those things that you can't control? Because ultimately, I say this to my clients all the time. Yes, Millennial Talk generates 60 million impressions per Twitter chat. Doesn't mean that exact formula on somebody else's handle is going to generate that traction. Every audience is native to that handle, right, to that channel. So there's only so much you can predict in the social media landscape. With Instagram in particular, what are some of those barriers to growth? And then we'll talk about how to work around those barriers.
Yes, absolutely. So one is definitely, algorithm, right? And as everyone loves to blame the algorithm, it does change. It does affect you. And, you do have to just roll with it and not complain too much. But and so like one part of there are certain aspects of the algorithm that we can't control. Like, did you know that if, let's just say I follow all sports people, but then I'm also following you, I'll never see your stuff because you're not relevant. And you can't control what I'm following. Like you can't control what your followers are also following and how relevant you are. So it's like, does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's part of the reason why it can be so hard, especially when starting out. If your page doesn't fit in with the rest of your followers, other stuff they're following, you're not going to get seen. So that's right. Also, now hashtags. We can't really control how we're going to be seen in hashtags because they're individualized. So if we both looked up hashtag entrepreneur right now, we would see completely different posts based on our interests. It used to be like there was a top 9 and you were either in or out. And that was easy. That's how I grew over the summer. But they recently changed that in I want to say December or November.
Oh, I actually wasn't super aware of that in particular because so now everyone's interests are really based on just what they're liking and engaging in, because we don't, upon making an Instagram handle, set a preference of what our interests are. So it's really just our user engagement is setting our interests.
Exactly. And that's also why I say you should never do that thing where you follow and unfollow people, because if you're following 7,500 people, which is the max, and they're all random, it's going to be impossible for you to organically go through and engage with other people and kind of make sure your interests are right and make sure you're fitting into the right niche. Who you follow matters.
Mm-hmm. And who you follow matters because why?
Because you have to be one, following your competition to see what they're up to. 2, you're going to be part of a community. You have to engage with other people to, make sure it's a two-way street. So if you're following a bunch of random people and you're not interested in what they're putting out there, you're not going to like and comment, and that two-way street is closed.
Okay, so yeah. It's so interesting that there's so many elements to take into consideration with every channel, and that doesn't mean that every channel has the same things to take into consideration, which is why, taking the time to really understand community growth, understanding what you cannot change on Instagram. We have no power to change the Instagram algorithm. We have no power to change the Facebook algorithm. However, there are things to know that will help us overcome some of those barriers.
I can totally share some, consistency. You don't have to post every day, but it'd be better if you posted every other day at around the same time than once a week, 1 week, and then every day the next week, and then just pick a schedule that works for you and stick to it. It doesn't have to be every day. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It can be once every 3 days, even if that's your jam.
And just because you post today on February 20th doesn't mean that some of your users or followers are going to see that post today.
Exactly. They might see it the next day or the next day after that, or a week later, depending on what their activity is. Another thing that you can do is use hashtags, and use hashtags that are targeted, meaning if we're both going to use hashtag entrepreneur in our stuff, it's not going to work. There's probably over 4 million posts in that hashtag, and we'll get buried under all the new stuff coming in. So you have to use smaller niche ones, under 1 million, or under 500,000 even, especially if you're starting out. That is a huge, huge factor in growth, using the right ones.
And a lot of people might think the opposite. The more the hashtags used, the more that they'll be seen. And sometimes if it's oversaturated, like you said, you can just get pushed down in the feed so much because there's already 1 million plus people using hashtag entrepreneur.
Exactly.
And I'm always a big advocate for creating a signature hashtag that's relevant to your content and your brand, so that you can really differentiate yourself from the competition. And this way, if someone were to click into that signature hashtag, all of your beautiful content is going to show up. And that's what I've done with Millennial Talk, especially on Twitter primarily. I do use it on Instagram as well. But creating that native hashtag that's relevant to your brand and your business, I do think is a very important note to also add, in addition to some of the other hashtags that are more general, but a signature one native to your brand.
Oh, totally. You should definitely use 1 or even 2 hashtags that are branded, so that if you do want to build a community one day, you'll know exactly what hashtag to use. It'll be mostly your stuff in it already. Like, try and pick one that doesn't have, a lot of posts in it yet, maybe 100, like if people randomly using it. Like, I'm sure people have used Millennial Talk for other things without knowing who you are, but it's mostly your stuff. So it's like you dominate it.
Exactly. And that's what everybody wants to do. You should be able to, you should ultimately want to dominate in a space with that signature hashtag. And then of course, the more you use it, the more your community will know that's native to you and your brand. And then hopefully
that I think 70% of the main hashtags people are using right now are branded.
That doesn't surprise me, because I think all those branded hashtags are the ones that are definitely being used most strategically. And I think we're all getting a little bit more savvy in the way that we think and use hashtags for different purposes.
Totally.
So I think, hashtags are something to absolutely consider. And I hate, sorry guys if you do this, but I hate when people do hashtag I don't know what happened today. Hashtag, oh my God, I missed the train. Hashtag, I can't watch another commercial. Hashtag, my baby won't stop crying. Don't do that.
That is oh my God, that's such a good tip. And that's what you would do if you have a personal account, not a business account.
Right, exactly. Don't do that if you have a business account. Okay. So let's do some rapid fire hacks together and tag team some of the tips and tricks that we've done ourselves and have seen actually work. And how do you feel about Instagram filters and sticking to one filter and one filter only? What's your opinion? What's your advice? Any tips in regards to Instagram filters?
Yeah. Don't use them.
I know.
If you're going to use them, at least tone them down a little bit. People want more real looking, high quality photos. The filter thing is not really that professional, but yeah, stick to the same one. But I would say tone it down, because you have the option to do that. I instead choose to edit in a free app called Snapseed. That's I use it for saturation. My food is not that colorful in real life. I boost the saturation, I make it sharper, I make it brighter, all that stuff in Snapseed. Free, it's awesome. Use that more than filters.
Okay, so I'm going to write these down because I'm going to share them after. Photo editing app that you like, Snapseed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. Love learning new tools and especially editing photo edit apps. I also heard and also have explored and experimented a few times myself with certain posts that if your image on Instagram has more of a blue tint and a blue hue, it is known to get 24% more engagement.
Wow. I think I've heard that too, but I haven't tested it myself, and I think it's probably true.
So I've tested it, and it's definitely been more of my lifestyle pictures. Obviously, if I'm in the studio, you're going to see more green screen than blue. But the sky, the ocean, the lake, anything that ultimately is blue that could be further reinforced and popped. It's gorgeous, and you can go to the filters on Instagram and go to the color tints, and blue is an option.
Totally. So a great tip, and I do think that people should experiment with that for sure.
It's definitely a fun experiment to try, especially if your brand coloring is in the blue hues. Then definitely give it a whirl and see what you think for yourself. So important to use the bio appropriately.
Yes.
Talk about the bio and what we should be doing on our Instagram bios. What we should be doing and shouldn't be doing.
Okay. So you get 150 characters. Half of them, or a third of them, should be for the call to action for your link. Do not link to your homepage unless it's mobile friendly. Link to something specific. Change that call to action in your bio every time you have a new link. That's so important. Like your bio, and also your bios is not about you. They don't care that you are an author. They don't care that you like have a PhD. They care what you are giving them. So, add like one credential, but the rest of the bio, the main part should be what they're following you for. And yeah, so that's my formula. Like, a little bit of credentials, what they're following you for, and save room for a CTA.
I really like that, and I might have to go reevaluate my bio with that tip in mind, because I'm so over the keynote speaker, millennial marketing.
They don't care. They probably don't even know what a keynote is. That's the truth.
I'm seriously going to reevaluate my bios when we are done with this, especially for Instagram. And also for those of you who are looking to push a specific landing page or microsite in particular, use that bio link. So to your advantage, being that we cannot hyperlink in Instagram posts.
It has to be mobile friendly. Like if it's not mobile friendly, and they have to know what they're doing when they get on there, because if it's overwhelming, they're going to hop right off. And
now, highlights. They're new to Instagram. How are you seeing them being used most effectively? And any advice or tips on highlights?
Sure. Highlights are being used to like show like evergreen, like where your course might be, where to sign up for your email list, like where a new blog post is, like those like kind of like things that you don't want to keep promoting over and over, and then they just sit there on your profile. People are using cover pages for them, which is so cute. I love them. They're like little icons, and I haven't done that yet, but I really like it. The problem I have with story highlights right now is that you don't have analytics for them. You can't tell if the story numbers don't go up. Like you can't tell if people are watching them.
Oh, is that, I thought you can see how many people view your highlights in the bottom left corner. And then if you actually swipe up, it gives you further data on link clicks.
On the data of the original story.
Oh, not on.
Yeah, it doesn't show continued views.
Oh,
yeah,
that's interesting. I bet that
annoying. I'm waiting for it. Yeah,
you would think that's going to evolve over time, being that highlights are still so new. Also, I do know that highlights on business pages only with a certain amount of followers is where you're also able to embed a link into a highlight.
Yes, 10,000 followers.
Right. So for those of you who are in a business page and, of course, want to further direct people to certain landing pages, microsites, press, whatever it might be, definitely take the link option into consideration through highlights there.
I tell people you should work to get to 10,000, then after that, it doesn't matter that much anymore. Like,
I like that.
Yeah, it's like that's the benchmark. When you get that link in stories, that is so effective. Oh my God, it's way more effective than anything else I've ever seen on the platform. So, yeah.
And then how effective and essential is it for us to really have either analytics or just being aware of the best times to post on Instagram when our audience is most active?
So analytics are key, and the analytics that Instagram gives you for free with a business account are better than anything I've seen. I do not invest in like any other platform. I don't need it. They give you everything. Like they even tell you when your audience is on. Some people say it's not true, but I've experienced that by following the times that Instagram suggests, my posts do better. So that's just my experience, but you learn a lot. You know your demographics in the analytics, you know where they live, and like that's super helpful too for time zones. Like half my audience is in London randomly. I don't even know how that happened. So like I have to be very aware of their time zone.
That's very interesting, and also something really to take into consideration too, especially if you are a global brand or you're not just brick and mortar in, South Florida only, and you are for just the country. We do have different time zones throughout just the US and alone. And I did a little research on Sprout Social just to give a overview from Sprout Social analytics and research of some of the strongest times to post. And it says weekdays are the strongest days to post on Instagram versus weekends. Mondays typically have the highest level of engagement in the week. And I feel like that's because everyone's back to reality and trying to get that motivation for entering the work week. Highest recommended post times include 2 a.m., 8 a.m., and 5 p.m.
But 2 a.m. in what time zone? That's the problem.
I was so annoyed that there was no time zone. Yeah. And maybe it's the 2 a.m. to 5 p.m. spread because of the time zones in particular. Every day around 3 p.m. seems to drive the least amount of engagement.
Yes, I found personally 11 a.m., like mid-morning and then mid-afternoon are the worst.
Okay. And safe posting periods, excluding 3 p.m., include most times between Monday and Thursday. So I guess Monday and Thursdays are the most optimal times,
Yeah.
days to post. And then what are some of the time? So if you're Eastern, you're Pacific Standard Time. Right?
I'm Mountain Time.
See, it's so complicated when it comes into time. I have a feeling, though, for Sprout Social, these times are Eastern Standard Time. That's usually the most generic for the U.S. in particular, especially because a lot of the big media outlets come out of New York, Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
So, you know what? But as much as these are recommended times, I always say you won't know until you track your Instagram handle, right?
Yes, absolutely right.
I totally agree. And then, amazing announcement that Hootsuite now allows you to schedule Instagram posts. How life-changing is that for you?
I only tried it a couple times, and it's so new that it's not consistent yet. So I don't know. I would not recommend using it until it is consistent, because a couple of my posts failed. The caption didn't post.
Really?
And I've heard this across the board. It's not just me, like, being not tech savvy. Like it's not consistent yet because it's so new. But it's a step in the right direction. Like, thank God we can schedule stuff now, because now you can do everything at the same time: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, LinkedIn, like.
Exactly. And let me tell you, I have scheduled 4, if not 5 posts through Hootsuite on Instagram, and everything has been okay.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
It, anal retentively after, because it's hard to believe that it could be so convenient to schedule Instagram posts. But maybe it is a little bit of an evolution with Hootsuite.
I'll give it another shot. The other thing is, for me, I write my captions raw. Like, I need to be in the moment writing them, or else they sound not the way I want them to sound. I don't know. It's just my personal thing I do. I don't recommend doing that for everyone.
I totally hear it. I think that there are certain posts that are okay to schedule, and then there are certain posts that have to be natively real-time posts. And that's only something you and your content calendar, of course, can decide. But the fact that consistency and time is such a problem for most of us when it comes to social media, now being able to schedule content across the board, and especially for Instagram, because it's so primarily used for business today, is definitely a sweetener to the deal, I think, for sure.
Oh, no, it is. It's kind of like it's like a long time coming, for sure.
Last question before we wrap up, and hello everyone who's been joining us. We have Rhonda, Bobby Stamps, Chris Victoria, we had a bunch of other people, Daniel, Ron, Chris Martinez, Chris Howard, hello, Brian Fanzo. Hi, everybody. If you have any questions before we hop off today, of course, drop them in the comments below. But my big last question, I think we're all so consumed by what we're posting, when we're posting, what hashtags we're posting, right? But in order to build a community, and I call them a brand tribe, a tribe that is loyal and engaged and takes action, it's more than just posting awesome content, right? It's engaging in followers, it's commenting on other people's posts, it's liking other people's posts. What is the ratio to posting versus engaging that you think is needed to scale a community to your level? And how much of that community engagement element is something that you focus on in Work Week Lunch, because you do have over 100,000 followers right now?
So engagement, to me, engagement means investing in them, ask them questions like we talked about earlier, and showing up every day and showing that you care and that you're listening through your content, whether that's visually, in the captions. But the key for me has been stories. Like, I post once a day, but I'm posting stories like 30 times a day. And I'm talking to them. I'm talking like face to face. And like, think that for me, I think the quality you're talking about, by the way, is leadership. If you post every day and you're like just posting for your lifestyle, it's not going to work. But if you're taking them on a journey and you're leading them towards a result, it's going to work way better.
That is it. Take them on a journey, lead them towards a result, and provide value along the way.
Right, like any other channel, like.
Right. Right. And so before we sign off, is there another tip or hack or words of wisdom when it comes to Instagram in particular that we can leave everybody with?
Absolutely. When you're growing and you feel like you're stuck and your followers aren't growing, focus on the followers you have, not trying to get more.
That is it. That is so key. And I think that also goes to consumers and clients, right? You know, your current consumer base, your current client base, your current follower base. Always make sure that they're top of mind. We're always usually like on to the next or thinking ahead, but your followers are already there. They're already committed. Yes. Don't forget about them and then they fall off. Ultimately, that's working against you, not for you.
Totally.
Well, thank you so much for all of your amazing advice, your tips, and your just inspiration of, look, you can have a dream to live at the base of a mountain and snowboard every day and use Instagram to help build your business. You're the definition of that. So awesome, Talia. Let me tell you, I am so inspired and motivated by At Work Week Lunch because as an entrepreneur, as a girl on the go, and as someone who likes to be healthy most of the time, it's hard. It's really hard. And I also get really bored. I'm so sick of the same salad over and over, same sandwich over and over. So the variety in ingredients and recipes and even options for vegan and vegetarian options, I love. So I'm a huge fan of At Work Week Lunch. Follow Talia on Instagram. And not only is she great for Instagram hacks and growth, but she's really great for meal prep, easy recipes, and intuitive eating. So thank you so much for joining us, Talia. And good luck on Instagram, everybody. It's about the marathon, not the sprint when it comes to social media. Doesn't happen overnight. I'll leave you at that. Have a great day. And thank you again, Talia. Bye, everyone.